I was 5 minutes from walking into my own ambush. I'm Eddie Sullivan, and I almost lost everything to the person I trusted most. For 8 months since my wife Dorothy died, my daughter, Victoria, had been the perfect caregiver, driving me to appointments, organizing my medications, even helping with my finances. What I didn't know was that she'd been building a legal case to have me declared mentally incompetent, and she was minutes away from succeeding. But grief doesn't make you stupid, and 40 years in tech teaches you to recognize patterns, even when they're wrapped in hugs and casseroles. My phone rang at 4:47 p.m. on October 15th, 2024. James Mitchell, my lawyer and former business partner. His voice was steel. Eddie, turn around now. Don't go to that dinner. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. This story could save someone you love. Let me tell you how a Sunday dinner invitation became the most important phone call of my life. After Dorothy died in March, I'll admit I wasn't myself. 43 years of marriage don't end quietly. I'd forget appointments, lose my keys, stand in the kitchen wondering why I'd walked in there. Victoria noticed everything. Dad, you missed your cardiology appointment again. She'd say it with that concerned daughter voice, but I caught her making notes on her phone. Dr. Peterson thinks you should consider some support. Dr. Nathan Whitmore, Victoria's friend from her pharmaceutical company networking events. Convenient how she always mentioned him after I'd had a particularly foggy day. The first red flag should have been the speed. 3 weeks after Dorothy's funeral, Victoria was already talking about getting my affairs in order. She showed up to my Cherry Creek condo with legal documents. It's just power of attorney paperwork, Dad, in case something happens. I'd built CloudSync Technologies from nothing to a $400 million acquisition. But suddenly, I couldn't be trusted to balance my own checkbook. The second red flag was the money talk. Victoria kept bringing up my complicated finances. The $5.3 million estate Dorothy and I had built over 4 decades was apparently too much responsibility for someone in my condition. Like grief was a medical diagnosis. She started small. Dad, let me help with the investment accounts. You seem overwhelmed. Then bigger. Maybe we should sell some of the CloudSync stock. Simplify things. The biggest red flag was how she talked about me to others when she thought I couldn't hear. I was in the bathroom at her house when I heard her on the phone in the kitchen. He's getting worse. Yesterday he asked me the same question 3 times. A pause. Dr. Whitmore says that's classic early-stage dementia behavior. Except I never asked her the same question 3 times. I'd asked one question about Dorothy's jewelry, where Victoria had moved it for safekeeping, and when she gave me 3 different answers, I asked for clarification twice more. That night, I started paying attention. Victoria had keys to my condo. She'd borrowed them to help organize after Dorothy died. She knew my schedule, my doctors, my financial advisor. She'd positioned herself as my primary caregiver without me realizing it. More concerning, she'd started speaking for me in public. At the grocery store, she'd tell the pharmacist, Dad gets confused with his medications. At the bank, he's been having some memory issues. Creating a paper trail. The breaking point came in early October. I was having coffee with my neighbor Ray Kowalski, a Denver PD detective who'd become a friend over the years. Ray mentioned something that made my blood freeze. Eddie, Victoria called our precinct asking about wellness checks for elderly residents. Said she was worried about you living alone. Wellness checks, the kind that go into police reports, the kind that lawyers use as evidence in competency hearings. That's when I realized this wasn't concern. This was strategy. Victoria wasn't helping me through grief. She was building a case that I was mentally unfit to manage my own life. Every forgetful moment she documented, every concerned phone call to medical professionals, every piece of help she offered, it was all evidence. Evidence that my grieving mind was actually a failing mind. But here's what Victoria didn't understand about tech executives. We don't just recognize patterns. We investigate them. And once I started investigating my loving, caring daughter, I discovered something that turned my stomach. She wasn't just planning to take control of my money. She was planning to make me disappear entirely. The envelope arrived on October 8th. hand-delivered by courier while I was at physical therapy. Victoria happened to be there to sign for it. "Dad, some legal paperwork came for you." She handed it over with that same concerned smile. "Probably just routine estate stuff." It wasn't routine. The header read Colorado Geriatric Assessment Center, a facility I'd never heard of. Inside was a letter scheduling my comprehensive cognitive evaluation for October 20th, 5 days after our planned Sunday dinner. The evaluation that would determine if I was competent to manage my own affairs. I called the assessment center. According to their records, the evaluation had been requested by concerned family members and my primary physician, Dr. Nathan Whitmore. The same Dr. Whitmore who'd never actually examined me beyond a 15-minute consultation at Victoria's house. The same consultation where Victoria had mentioned repeatedly how confused I'd been lately. I hung up and did the math. If that assessment went forward, I had maybe a week before Victoria could petition for emergency conservatorship. In Colorado, that process can happen fast when there's immediate risk to the person's well-being. The financial stakes were staggering. My CloudSync stock alone was worth $3.2 million. Add Dorothy's life insurance payout of $2.1 million, our real estate holdings, retirement accounts, and liquid investments. Victoria was positioning herself to control $5.3 million. But it wasn't just the money. Under conservatorship, she'd control everything. Where I lived, what I ate, who I could see, whether I could drive my own car. I'd become a legal non-person. The more I researched, the worse it got. I found the brochures Victoria thought she'd hidden, glossy pamphlets for Sunrise Memory Care. Monthly rate, $8,500. For a shared room, she'd already toured the facility. I found the appointment confirmation in her email, which I still had access to from when I'd helped her set up her home office network 2 years ago. Old tech habits die hard. The email chain was chilling. Victoria discussing move-in timelines and asset liquidation to cover long-term care costs. She'd calculated that my estate could cover 24 years at Sunrise Memory Care, assuming moderate lifestyle adjustments. Moderate lifestyle adjustments? Like selling my home, liquidating my investments, giving up every piece of independence I'd earned over 40 years of work. But the email that made me physically ill was from October 5th. Victoria writing to her husband, "Once the conservatorship goes through, we can finally buy that house in Aspen. Dad's estate will cover Mom's care costs indefinitely, and we'll have the freedom to live our lives." She wasn't saving me from incompetence. She was eliminating an inconvenience. The legal research was sobering. Colorado conservatorship law favors family members who can demonstrate immediate need. With a doctor's recommendation and evidence of declining capacity, the process could be completed in weeks. Dr. Whitmore's assessment would recommend immediate intervention. Victoria's documented concerns would support urgent action. My confusion about finances would justify emergency measures. And once the conservatorship was established, reversing it would be nearly impossible. I'd need to prove competence while having no legal standing to hire my own lawyer or access my own funds. The perfect trap. Victoria had thought of everything. She'd positioned herself as the devoted daughter managing her father's decline. She had medical backing from a licensed psychiatrist. She had documentation of my concerning behavior going back months. What she didn't have was the truth, because while Victoria was building her case, I was building mine. Every conversation with Dr. Whitmore I'd recorded on my phone. Every concerned phone call to my bank or doctors, I'd verified with follow-up questions that revealed the inconsistencies. Most importantly, I'd hired a private investigator. In September, when Victoria's behavior started feeling more like surveillance than support, I'd contacted Sarah Chen Brennan, former CloudSync board member, current FBI forensic accountant, and someone who understood how financial elder abuse worked. What Sarah found in 2 weeks of investigation would have made Victoria's $5.3 million payday look like pocket change compared to the federal charges she was about to face. But I needed her to make the final move. I needed her to walk into that dinner on October 15th, believing she'd won. Because Victoria had committed multiple felonies in her quest to steal my life, and I had the evidence to prove it. The question was whether I'd get the chance to use it, or whether Dr. Whitmore's assessment would happen exactly as Victoria planned. That's when my phone rang. "Dad, we need to talk." Victoria called at 2 p.m. on October 15th, 3 hours before our scheduled dinner. Her voice had a new edge I'd never heard before. "About what, sweetheart?" "About your appointment tomorrow with Dr. Whitmore." I'd been expecting this call. The assessment was scheduled for October 20th, not tomorrow. Victoria was moving up the timeline. "I don't have an appointment tomorrow." "Yes, you do. We discussed this last week. The cognitive evaluation?" Her voice sharpened. "Dad, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The memory issues." There it was, the trap being set in real time. "Victoria, I never agreed to any evaluation. Dad, you signed the consent forms. I have them right here." I could hear papers rustling. "Your signature is on 3 different documents." Signatures I'd never written on forms I'd never seen. "I'd like to see those documents." "Of course, bring them to dinner tonight. We can go over everything." Her voice softened back to the caring daughter routine. "Dad, I know this is scary, but Dr. Whitmore isn't the enemy here. He's trying to help." "Help with what?" "With getting you the support you need, before something bad happens." "What kind of bad thing?" Silence for 10 seconds. Then, "Dad, yesterday you called me asking where Mom's jewelry was. I told you it was in the safe deposit box. Then you called again 20 minutes later asking the same question." "I called once. You called 3 times. Check your phone log." Another pause. "Dad, the point isn't—" "Check your phone log, Victoria." "Fine." I heard her tapping her phone. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. The important thing is that you're forgetting conversations we've had." She'd just realized her lie was disprovable, but instead of backing down, she was doubling down. "What conversations?" "About your finances, about the house, about Mom's estate. I remember every conversation about money we've had. Dad, you told me last week you couldn't remember your Cloud Sync stock options." "I never said that." "Yes, you did, when we were discussing your portfolio." "Victoria, my Cloud Sync options vested in 2019. They're worth $3.2 million as of last Friday's close. They're in my E-Trade account. Allocation number 4718829. I checked the balance this morning." Dead silence. "I also remember you suggesting I sell them to simplify my finances." "Dad?" "I remember you saying my estate was too complicated for someone in my condition." "You are in a condition. This conversation proves it." "What condition is that?" "Paranoid, defensive, confused about people trying to help you." Her mask was slipping. The caring daughter was becoming the frustrated executor. "Help me do what?" "Make smart decisions about your future." "What smart decisions?" "Like whether you should be living alone in that big condo." "Should I be living alone?" "Dad, you left the stove on last Tuesday for 3 hours." "When on Tuesday?" "When you—" She stopped. "It doesn't matter when." "It matters to me. What time?" "What was I cooking?" "Dad, you're proving my point. You can't remember dangerous incidents." "I didn't leave the stove on, Victoria." "Yes, you did. I came over and found it." "You came over without calling?" "I was worried about you." "Why were you worried?" "Because of incidents like this." We were going in circles, but I was learning something crucial. Victoria couldn't provide specifics for any of her claims. Every concerning incident was vague, undated, unverifiable, because they weren't real. "Victoria, let me ask you something directly." "Okay." "Are you trying to have me declared mentally incompetent?" "Dad, that's a horrible thing to ask." "It's a yes or no question. I'm trying to help you get appropriate care." "That's not what I asked." "Dad, tomorrow's evaluation isn't about competency. It's about care planning. Dr. Whitmore isn't a care planner. He's a geriatric psychiatrist who specializes in competency evaluations." Silence. "Victoria, how do you know that?" "I researched him, like I research everyone I'm supposed to trust." "Dad, this paranoid behavior, what's paranoid about researching a doctor? The way you're questioning everything, everyone, like we're all conspiring against you." "Are you?" "Dad, that's—" Are you conspiring against me? I'm trying to protect you. From what? From making mistakes that could hurt you. What mistakes? Financial mistakes? Safety mistakes? Medical mistakes? Give me one example. Dad, one specific example of a mistake I've made. The line went quiet for almost a minute. Victoria? Dad, we'll discuss this tonight. At dinner. I'd like to discuss it now. Tonight, with Dr. Whitmore there to help explain things. Dr. Whitmore would be at dinner. This wasn't a family meal anymore. Will anyone else be there? Just family and Dr. Whitmore, and maybe Sarah from Adult Protective Services. Adult Protective Services, the final piece of Victoria's trap. Why would APS be there? They've received some calls about your welfare. What kind of calls? Concerned citizen reports about an elderly man who might need assistance. Concerned citizen reports from Victoria. Victoria, let me ask you one more question. Okay. Do you love me? The longest pause yet. Dad, of course I love you. That's why I'm doing this. But she'd hesitated, just for 3 seconds. But enough. I'll see you at dinner, sweetheart. Dad, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Make what harder? Click. She'd hung up. And in that last sentence, Victoria had finally told the truth. She wasn't helping me. She was taking me down. Tonight. After Victoria hung up, I sat in my Tesla for 20 minutes, thinking through 40 years of business relationships. People underestimate what retired tech executive means in Denver. They see a 64-year-old widower forgetting his car keys and assume he's lost his network along with his memory. They forget that CloudSync wasn't just another startup. We'd built authentication software for 3 federal agencies and 12 Fortune 500 companies. Our board meetings weren't just about profit margins, they were about national cybersecurity. When you build that kind of company, your contacts don't disappear when you retire. James Mitchell, for instance, my business partner for 15 years, now sitting on the federal bench for the District of Colorado. We still had coffee twice a month to discuss tech policy and judicial precedents. James knew Victoria. He'd watched her grow up. He'd also watched her ask increasingly specific questions about inheritance law every time she visited my office. Then there was Sarah Chen Brennan, former CloudSync board member, current FBI forensic accountant specializing in white-collar crime. Sarah had built her career tracking digital financial fraud, exactly the kind of skills you'd need to trace suspicious money movements. And Detective Ray Kowalski, my next-door neighbor who'd become a genuine friend over 5 years of weekend barbecues and Denver Broncos games. Ray worked white-collar crimes for Denver PD and had seen enough elder abuse cases to recognize the patterns. The fourth member of my informal network was someone Victoria had never met. Marcus Hartley, the private investigator Sarah had recommended. Former Secret Service, current specialist in financial surveillance and corporate espionage. I'd hired Marcus in September when Victoria's behavior shifted from supportive to controlling. His initial report had been disturbing enough, but his follow-up investigation, completed just yesterday, was explosive. Marcus had found the financial trail Victoria thought she'd hidden. On September 30th, Victoria had opened an offshore account in the Cayman Islands under her married name, Hayes. The account was structured specifically for large asset transfers, the kind you'd use for inheriting significant wealth. More damning, Marcus had traced a $32,000 wire transfer from Victoria's personal account to Dr. Nathan Whitmore's practice on October 1st. The memo line read consultation services. $32,000 for consultation services. Marcus had also discovered Dr. Whitmore's history. The Nevada Medical Board had suspended his license in 2018 for falsifying competency evaluations in elder abuse cases. He'd moved to Colorado and relicensed under a slightly different specialty designation. Victoria had found a doctor willing to declare anyone incompetent for the right price. The most concerning discovery was Victoria's timeline. Marcus had accessed her email metadata through entirely legal channels. She'd given me her password years ago for family photo sharing, and I'd never deleted the access. Victoria had been planning this since April. 1 month after Dorothy's funeral. Her emails revealed coordination with Dr. Whitmore going back 6 months, discussion of assessment protocols and documentation requirements for Colorado conservatorship proceedings. She'd also been in contact with 3 different elder care facilities, not just Sunrise Memory Care. She'd been shopping for the cheapest option that would accept Medicaid patients after the first 2 years of private pay. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. Use my estate to pay for expensive private care initially, then transfer me to a Medicaid facility once my assets were legally under her control. But Victoria had made one critical mistake in her research. She'd assumed that a grieving widower would be isolated, that losing Dorothy meant losing all my professional connections and support systems. She'd forgotten that respect in the tech community isn't just about current title, it's about past accomplishments and maintained relationships. More importantly, she'd forgotten that the same analytical skills that built CloudSync were still functioning perfectly well. I'd been investigating Victoria while she thought she was investigating me, and tonight she was about to discover that her loving, confused father had been 3 moves ahead of her the entire time. My phone buzzed. A text from James Mitchell. Evidence package reviewed. Standing by for your signal. It was 4:45 p.m. I had exactly 2 minutes before the most important phone call of my life. Victoria's house looked exactly like a stage set for concerned family intervention. I arrived at 5:30 p.m., 30 minutes early, deliberately. Victoria opened the door with the brightest smile I'd seen from her in months. "Dad, you're early. Perfect. Come in. Come in." The living room had been rearranged. The casual seating arrangement was now formal. Chairs positioned in a semicircle facing the couch where I was clearly expected to sit. A coffee table held neat stacks of documents, a box of tissues, and a digital recorder. "Is that necessary?" I nodded toward the recorder. "Dr. Whitmore suggested it. For accuracy." Victoria's voice carried a rehearsed quality. "Just so we all remember the conversation correctly." Dr. Nathan Whitmore stood as I entered. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit. He extended his hand with practiced warmth. "Mr. Sullivan, Nathan Whitmore, thank you for agreeing to this conversation." I'd never agreed to this conversation, but I shook his hand. "Doctor, please call me Nathan. We're all family here." Family. I noted the word choice. Where's Victoria's husband? Where are the grandkids? "Trevor took them to his parents for the evening," Victoria said quickly. "We thought it would be easier to focus without distractions." Translation: no witnesses who might question what they were about to do. "Dad, before we start, there's someone I'd like you to meet." Victoria opened the front door. "This is Sarah Martinez from Adult Protective Services." Sarah Martinez was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with a tablet and a professional demeanor that said she'd done this hundreds of times before. "Mr. Sullivan, I appreciate your willingness to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention." "What concerns?" "Reports about your living situation, your safety, your ability to manage daily activities." "Who made these reports?" Sarah glanced at Victoria. "Concerned community members, people who've observed some troubling incidents." "What incidents?" Doctor. Whitmore stepped forward. "Mr. Sullivan, why don't we sit down? This doesn't have to be confrontational." But it was already confrontational. 3 professionals had cornered me in my daughter's living room with documents and recording equipment. We sat. I took the couch as expected. They formed their semicircle. Victoria started the recorder. October 15th, 2024, 5:45 p.m. Present are Edward Sullivan, Victoria Hayes, Dr. Nathan Whitmore, and Sarah Martinez from APS. Dr. Whitmore opened a leather portfolio. "Mr. Sullivan, I've reviewed some concerning reports about your recent behavior. Memory lapses, confusion about finances, difficulty with daily tasks. Could you be specific? Your daughter has documented several incidents over the past few months." Victoria pulled out a typed list. "Dad, remember when you couldn't find your car in the parking garage? I had to call security. I remember that day. I'd parked on level 3 instead of level 2. You spent 45 minutes looking for it. I spent 10 minutes looking, then asked for help. That's not confusion. That's efficiency." Dr. Whitmore made a note. Mr. Sullivan, do you remember our consultation last month? You mean when Victoria brought you to my house unannounced and you asked me questions for 15 minutes? During that consultation, you seemed disoriented about the date. I asked you what day it was because I'd been napping when you arrived. You couldn't remember your wife's maiden name. You asked me my wife's maiden name while I was still grieving her death 8 months ago. I told you it was none of your business. Sarah Martinez looked up from her tablet. Mr. Sullivan, are you currently managing your own finances? Yes. Do you feel confident about complex financial decisions? I retired with a net worth of $5.3 million. I'd say my financial decisions have been adequate. Victoria leaned forward. Dad, you've been asking me to help with your investments because you said they were confusing. I asked you to review them because Dorothy used to handle our insurance policies. I wanted a second opinion on the beneficiary designations. You said the CloudSync stock was too complicated. I said the tax implications of the stock options were complicated enough that I wanted to consult with our accountant before making any changes. Dr. Whitmore intervened. Mr. Sullivan, these defensive responses are concerning. When family members express worry about your well-being, the healthy response is gratitude, not suspicion. And there it was, the trap Victoria had set so carefully. Any response I gave would be pathologized. Defending myself was defensive. Asking questions was paranoid. Remembering details was obsessive. Doctor, let me ask you something. Of course. How much is Victoria paying you? The room went silent. I'm sorry? For this consultation, for your professional opinion about my competency, what's your fee? Dr. Whitmore glanced at Victoria. That's between my practice and the family member who requested the evaluation. So Victoria is paying you to evaluate my mental state? Mr. Sullivan, all medical consultations involve fees. How much? Victoria interrupted. Dad, Dr. Whitmore's fee structure isn't relevant to $32,000. Everyone stared at me. That's what she paid you, isn't it, Doctor? $32,000, transferred on October 1st. Dr. Whitmore's face had gone pale. I don't know where you got that information. The same place I got information about your Nevada medical license suspension in 2018. Sarah Martinez looked sharply at Dr. Whitmore. License suspension? For falsifying competency evaluations in elder abuse cases, I continued, specifically declaring elderly patients incompetent in exchange for payments from family members seeking conservatorship. The room had gone completely quiet. Victoria found her voice first. Dad, these paranoid accusations are documented facts, along with your Cayman Islands bank account, opened September 30th under your married name. Victoria's face went white. And your emails to 3 different memory care facilities, shopping for the cheapest Medicaid option after the first 2 years of private pay. Dr. Whitmore started to stand. I think we should reschedule. And the fact that you've been planning this since April, 1 month after my wife died. Sarah Martinez was typing furiously on her tablet. Mr. Sullivan, these are very serious allegations. They're very serious crimes, Victoria's voice cracked. Dad, you're sick. You're making up conspiracy theories. Am I? I pulled out my phone. Should I play the recording of your phone conversation with Dr. Whitmore from last Tuesday? Dead silence. The one where you discussed moving up the evaluation timeline because I was asking too many questions about the missing jewelry? Victoria was shaking. How did you... Or should I show everyone the wire transfer receipts? Dr. Whitmore was already moving toward the door. This conversation is over. No, I said quietly. This conversation's just beginning. That's when my phone rang. James Mitchell's name on the screen. The call I'd been waiting for. Excuse me, I need to take this. Eddie, this is James. Turn around now. Don't go to that dinner. I put the phone on speaker so everyone could hear. Actually, James, I'm already at the dinner. With Dr. Whitmore, Victoria, and someone from Adult Protective Services. Perfect. Sarah, this is Federal Judge James Mitchell. I need you to maintain the current scene for federal investigators. No one leaves that house. Sarah Martinez looked confused. Judge Mitchell, I don't understand. Sarah, you're about to witness the conclusion of a federal investigation into elder abuse, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit guardianship fraud. Dr. Whitmore made a move toward the door. I stood up. Doctor, I wouldn't leave if I were you. It'll just make things worse. Victoria was staring at the phone. Dad, what's happening? What's happening, sweetheart, is that you're about to face the consequences of stealing from your family. James Mitchell's voice continued through the speaker. Eddie, is the recording device still running? Victoria's recorder was still capturing everything. Yes. Good. Sarah, please note that Mr. Edward Sullivan appears completely competent and has been conducting a complex investigation for the past 6 weeks. Victoria Hayes and Dr. Nathan Whitmore, you're both subjects of an active federal investigation. I walked to Victoria's laptop, sitting open on the kitchen counter. Her email was still logged in. Victoria, should I read your email from October 5th to Trevor? The one about buying the house in Aspen once Dad's estate covers Mom's care costs? Victoria started crying. Dad, I was trying to help. Help who? Because according to your emails, you calculated that my estate could cover 24 years of memory care at $8,500 per month, assuming moderate lifestyle adjustments. I clicked to another email. Or this one to Sunrise Memory Care, asking about their transition protocols for patients who resist placement initially. Dr. Whitmore tried again to leave. Sarah Martinez blocked his path. Doctor, please remain seated. I opened my laptop bag and pulled out a thick folder. Sarah, I'd like to show you the evidence I've been gathering. The first document was a bank statement. This shows an unauthorized transfer of $890,000 from my joint account with Victoria to her personal account on September 28th. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. That wasn't unauthorized. You gave me power of attorney. I never gave you power of attorney. You forged my signature. I handed Sarah another document. This is handwriting analysis, comparing my actual signature to the signature on the documents Victoria claims I signed. Sarah studied the comparison. These signatures are clearly different. The next folder contained phone records. These show 17 calls between Victoria and Dr. Whitmore over the past 6 weeks, including 3 calls lasting over an hour, all discussing strategies for my evaluation. Dr. Whitmore's voice was tight. Those were legitimate medical consultations with a doctor who's never examined me, about a patient who never consented to treatment. I pulled out another document. This is Dr. Whitmore's disciplinary record from Nevada. 3 cases of falsified competency evaluations, payments ranging from $15,000 to $50,000. Sarah was taking notes rapidly. Mr. Sullivan, how did you obtain this information? I hired a private investigator, former Secret Service. When your daughter starts asking specific questions about conservatorship timelines, you pay attention. Victoria stood up suddenly. This is insane. Dad, you're sick. You need help. Victoria, sit down. She stopped. Something in my voice was different. The quiet, grieving widower was gone. The only help I need is protection from your criminal conspiracy. I opened the final folder. Sarah, this contains email evidence showing that Victoria has been planning to institutionalize me since April. She's researched Colorado conservatorship law, contacted multiple elder care facilities, and established offshore accounts for asset transfer. That's not illegal. It is when combined with forged documents, fraudulent medical evaluations, and wire transfers made under false pretenses. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Chen Brennan. FBI en route. ETA 3 minutes. I showed the text to everyone. Victoria, in about 3 minutes, federal agents are going to arrive at your house with warrants for wire fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy charges. Victoria collapsed back into her chair. Dad, please. I'm your daughter. You were my daughter until you decided I was worth more to you dead than alive. Dr. Whitmore tried one more time to negotiate. Mr. Sullivan, I think we can resolve this without involving federal agencies. Doctor, you charge $32,000 to declare a mentally competent man incompetent. That's fraud. When it's done to facilitate stealing someone's life savings, it's a federal crime. Sarah Martinez looked around the room. Mr. Sullivan, I need to report that you appear completely competent to manage your affairs. In fact, you've conducted a sophisticated investigation that demonstrates advanced analytical capabilities. Thank you, Sarah. For the record, I want to state clearly, I never authorized Victoria to access my accounts. I never requested competency evaluation. I never agreed to any care placement. Every claim to the contrary is documented fraud. The sound of cars pulling into the driveway made everyone look toward the window. Victoria started crying harder. Dad, I love you. I was scared you'd lose everything. You were scared you'd have to wait for me to die naturally to inherit everything. That's not true. Victoria, your emails discuss my life expectancy. You calculated how long my money would last at different care facilities. You researched the legal timeline for asset transfer after conservatorship. This wasn't about love. This was about math. The doorbell rang. Sarah Martinez went to answer it. 2 FBI agents entered, followed by Detective Ray Kowalski and a woman I recognized as federal prosecutor Janet Walsh. Agent Stevens introduced himself to the room. We have warrants for Victoria Hayes and Dr. Nathan Whitmore for wire fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit guardianship fraud, and forgery. Dr. Whitmore stood up slowly. I'd like to call my attorney. You'll have that opportunity at the federal building, Agent Stevens replied. Victoria looked at me one last time. Dad, please don't let them arrest me. I looked at my daughter, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bicycle, walked down the aisle at her wedding, held when she cried over teenage heartbreaks, and felt nothing but profound sadness. Victoria, you tried to steal my life, not just my money, my freedom, my dignity, my ability to make my own choices. You were going to put me in a facility and visit me on weekends while you spent my money on houses in Aspen. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to eliminate me. Agent Stevens placed handcuffs on Victoria as she sobbed. Victoria Hayes, you're under arrest for wire fraud and elder abuse. As they led her out, Victoria turned back. Dad, this will destroy our family. No, sweetheart, you already did that. The house went quiet after they left. Just me and Sarah Martinez, and the remains of what had been, an hour ago, Victoria's perfect trap. Mr. Sullivan, Sarah said quietly, I'm very sorry this happened to you. So am I, Sarah. So am I. The FBI moved fast. Within 2 hours, they'd frozen Victoria's accounts, seized Dr. Whitmore's files, and recovered $847,000 of the $890,000 she'd transferred. The remaining $43,000 had been spent on legal consultation fees. Ironic, considering she'd need much better lawyers now. Agent Stevens briefed me at the federal building while Victoria and Dr. Whitmore were being processed. Mr. Sullivan, this case is going to be straightforward. Wire fraud across state lines, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, forged legal documents. We have everything we need. What kind of sentences are we looking at? Wire fraud alone carries up to 20 years. With the elder abuse enhancement and conspiracy charges, Dr. Whitmore could see 15 to 20 years. Your daughter, as a first offender, probably 7 to 12 years. 7 to 12 years. Victoria's plan to steal my life was going to cost her most of her own. The restitution process will begin immediately, Agent Stevens continued. We'll recover every penny, plus damages and legal fees. Detective Ray Kowalski pulled me aside afterward. Eddie, I've seen a lot of these cases. They don't usually end this well for the victim. What do you mean? Most elderly victims don't realize what's happening until after the conservatorship is granted. By then, it's nearly impossible to reverse. You not only caught it early, you documented everything. Tech habits die hard. No, it's more than that. Victoria underestimated you completely. She saw grief and assumed incapacity. Ray was right. Victoria had confused emotional vulnerability with cognitive decline. She'd seen me crying over Dorothy's photographs and assumed my mind was failing along with my heart. The federal prosecutor, Janet Walsh, met with me on Tuesday. Mr. Sullivan, this is one of the most thoroughly documented elder abuse cases I've prosecuted. Your evidence package is extraordinary. What happens next? Dr. Whitmore is cooperating. He's admitted to the payment arrangement and provided details about 2 similar cases in Colorado. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he's helping us identify other potential victims. And Victoria? She's maintaining her innocence, claims she genuinely believed you were incompetent and was acting in your best interests. Despite the offshore accounts and the Aspen House emails, she claims those were future planning conversations, not evidence of criminal intent. Janet Walsh shook her head. Juries don't buy that argument when they see handwriting analysis proving forged signatures. When does this go to trial? Probably won't. Dr. Whitmore's cooperation is devastating to her defense. I expect a plea agreement within 6 weeks. I left the prosecutor's office feeling strange. Justice was happening exactly as it should. The evidence was overwhelming. The legal process was moving efficiently, but I felt no satisfaction. On Wednesday morning, Trevor called. Victoria's husband, now facing his own financial ruin, as assets were frozen and legal bills mounted. Eddie, I need you to know I had no idea what Victoria was doing. I believe you, Trevor. She told me you were declining rapidly, that you'd asked her to help with your finances because you were confused. What did you think about the Aspen house? Long pause. She said you'd suggested we start looking at vacation properties for the family. Trevor wasn't lying. Victoria had constructed separate narratives for everyone. I was confused to the medical professionals. I was generous to her husband. I was vulnerable to adult protective services. Trevor, what happens to the kids? They're staying with my parents while this gets sorted out. Eddie, they don't understand why Mommy isn't coming home. Victoria and Trevor's children, my grandchildren, 8 and 12 years old. Their mother was facing federal prison time for trying to steal from their grandfather. Can I see them? I don't know if that's appropriate right now. And there it was. Victoria's final victim count wasn't just her and Dr. Whitmore. It was Trevor, the kids, our extended family, our family friends who'd have to choose sides. The ripple effects of her betrayal would last decades. On Thursday, Sarah Chen Brennan called with the final financial assessment. Eddie, we've recovered all but $43,000 of your money. The offshore account is closed. Victoria's assets are frozen pending restitution. What about her house? They'll probably have to sell it to cover legal fees. Trevor's income alone won't carry the mortgage. Victoria's house, where she'd hosted birthday parties for the grandchildren, where Dorothy and I had spent countless Sunday dinners, where Victoria had just tried to steal my life. Sarah, there's something else. We found evidence that Victoria had been skimming from your accounts for over a year. Small amounts, $2,000 here, $5,000 there, always under the reporting thresholds. How much total? About $47,000. She was testing your attention to detail long before the conservatorship plan. Victoria hadn't suddenly decided to rob me after Dorothy died. She'd been robbing me while Dorothy was alive, while she was bringing casseroles to our house, while she was playing with her children in our backyard. The woman who'd hugged me at Dorothy's funeral had already been stealing from me for months. By Friday, the media had picked up the story. Denver Tech executive foils daughter's elaborate theft scheme. FBI breaks elder abuse ring targeting wealthy retirees. I was getting calls from other elderly victims asking for advice, from adult children worried about their own parents, from reporters wanting interviews. But the call that mattered came Saturday morning. Dad? Victoria's voice, calling from federal lockup. They said I could make one call. I wanted to talk to you. I'm listening. Dad, I'm sorry. I know you won't believe me, but I really thought I was helping. Victoria, you transferred almost $1 million to offshore accounts. I was scared you'd lose everything to scams or bad investments. I thought if I controlled the money, you'd spend it on houses in Aspen. Silence. Dad, please don't let me go to prison. Please. And for just a moment, I heard my little girl again, crying because she'd made a mistake, asking Daddy to fix it. But some mistakes can't be fixed. Victoria, you made your choices. Now you live with the consequences. The guilty plea came exactly 6 weeks later, just as Janet Walsh had predicted. Victoria accepted a deal. 7 years federal prison, full restitution of $947,000, including fees and damages, and permanent exclusion from any involvement in my financial affairs. Dr. Whitmore got 12 years after prosecutors discovered he'd run similar schemes in 3 states over 8 years. His medical licenses were permanently revoked. The immediate financial damage was fixable. The human damage wasn't. Trevor had to sell the house. Victoria's legal fees alone topped $180,000. draining their savings and college funds for the children. He moved back to his parents' place in Wisconsin with my grandchildren. I haven't seen them since Victoria's arrest. Trevor says they ask about Grandpa Eddie, but they don't understand why Mommy did bad things that made her go away. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that their mother tried to steal their grandfather's life? Our extended family fractured along predictable lines. Victoria's sister blamed me for pressing charges against family. 2 cousins stopped speaking to me, convinced I'd overreacted to Victoria's concerns about my well-being. Dorothy's sister called me a week after the sentencing. Eddie, Dorothy would be heartbroken about all this. Dorothy would be heartbroken that Victoria tried to rob me blind and put me in a nursing home. Victoria was trying to help herself to $5 million. She's still family. No, she stopped being family when she decided I was worth more to her institutionalized than free. The conversation ended badly. Another relationship casualty of Victoria's choices. But there were unexpected allies, too. Sarah Martinez from APS called a month later. Mr. Sullivan, I wanted to thank you. Your case led us to review Dr. Whitmore's other recommendations. We've identified 6 other elderly victims whose families may have been defrauded. Are you investigating? The FBI is. Your documentation provided a template for recognizing the pattern. You may have saved half a dozen other seniors from losing their independence. Ray Kowalski, my neighbor, became a closer friend than ever. He'd started bringing me cases to review, other potential elder abuse situations where my tech background might spot digital evidence. Eddie, you've got an eye for financial fraud that most cops lack. Would you consider consulting? Consulting on what? White-collar elder abuse. There's a whole network of predators out there targeting wealthy seniors. Someone with your background could help us catch them. I'd retired from tech to enjoy my golden years with Dorothy. Now I was being recruited for a second career protecting seniors from their own families. The irony wasn't lost on me. James Mitchell called in December with a different opportunity. Eddie, I'm hearing your name mentioned in federal law enforcement circles. Apparently your documentation techniques are being taught at FBI training seminars. My documentation techniques? How you systematically gathered evidence while appearing vulnerable. How you used your tech background to verify financial irregularities. How you built a legal case while the perpetrators thought they were building theirs. It's just basic cybersecurity thinking applied to family fraud. It's more than that. There's talk about federal legislation requiring better oversight of conservatorship proceedings. Your case is being cited as evidence for the need for reform. Victoria's attempt to steal my life was becoming a catalyst for protecting other seniors' lives, but the most important call came in January, 3 months after the arrest. Grandpa Eddie? A 12-year-old voice I barely recognized. Katie? Dad said I could call you. I wanted to ask you something. What, sweetheart? Did Mommy really try to hurt you? I closed my eyes. How do you answer that question honestly without destroying a child's love for her mother? Mommy made some very bad choices about money, Katie. She thought she was helping, but she was actually hurting people. Are you mad at her? I'm sad about the choices she made, but I'm not mad at you or your brother. None of this was your fault. Can we still be family, even if Mommy can't come home? My throat tightened. We'll always be family, Katie. Always. Dad says maybe we can visit you this summer. I'd like that very much. After Katie hung up, I sat in my condo looking at family photographs. 40 years of pictures with Victoria. Birthdays, graduations, her wedding, the grandchildren's births. All of it real. All of it precious. All of it complicated now by her betrayal. The financial damage was repaired. My independence was restored. Justice was served. But trust, once broken this completely, doesn't heal. Victoria will be released when she's 45. Her children will be grown. Her family will be scattered. Her father will be 71, assuming I live that long. Maybe we'll reconcile. Maybe time will soften the edges of this betrayal. Or maybe some violations are permanent. Time will tell. It's been 8 months since that Sunday dinner. I'm still living independently in my Cherry Creek condo, still managing my own $5.3 million estate, still mentally competent despite grief over losing Dorothy. But I've changed how I think about family. Victoria taught me that shared DNA doesn't guarantee shared values, that I love you can coexist with I'll rob you blind, that the person most trusted to protect you might be the person most positioned to destroy you. My estate planning has changed dramatically. No more joint accounts with family members. No more casual access to financial information. No more assumptions that good intentions follow blood relationships. I've established what lawyers call a trust but verify structure. My grandchildren will receive their inheritance through educational trusts managed by independent trustees. Victoria will receive exactly what Colorado law requires for children explicitly disinherited by will: $1. My new will states clearly that Victoria's exclusion is intentional and based on her conviction for elder abuse and wire fraud. No future lawyer will be able to claim I forgot her in my final planning. The consulting work with Ray Kowalski has become surprisingly fulfilling. In 6 months, I've helped identify 12 cases of potential financial elder abuse. 3 have led to federal investigations. 1 has already resulted in convictions. Apparently, 4 decades in tech creates skills that transfer well to detecting family fraud. Pattern recognition, documentation protocols, evidence preservation, it's all the same analytical process, just applied to relatives instead of hackers. Sarah Chen Brennan invited me to speak at an FBI conference next month about technological approaches to elder abuse detection. The irony of Victoria's attempted theft launching my second career as a fraud investigator isn't lost on me. But the most important change is emotional. I've learned to distinguish between healthy vulnerability and dangerous naivety. Grief didn't make me incompetent, it made me human. The difference matters. I miss Dorothy every day. I still cry looking at her photographs. I still get confused about whether to buy 1 box of cereal or 2 at the grocery store. None of that makes me unfit to manage my own life. Victoria confused emotional pain with cognitive failure. She saw tears and assumed dementia. She witnessed grief and diagnosed incompetence. Her mistake was thinking that feeling deeply meant thinking poorly. My new relationships reflect this understanding. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee with women my age who've also lost spouses. We share the strange territory of rebuilding life after losing your partner of 4 decades. These women understand that missing your deceased wife doesn't mean forgetting how to balance a checkbook, that crying during sad movies doesn't indicate declining mental capacity, that needing companionship isn't the same as needing supervision. Katie calls me twice a month. Her brother Michael, now 13, has started calling too. We talk about school, sports, their life in Wisconsin. I send birthday presents and Christmas gifts. We're planning a summer visit. Their mother's choices damaged our family, but they didn't destroy it. Victoria will remain their mother forever. I will remain their grandfather forever. Love and justice can coexist, even when they're complicated. Trevor and I have developed an unexpected friendship. He sends me photos of the children, keeps me updated on their activities, asks for advice about parenting teenagers whose mother is in federal prison. Neither of us mentions Victoria much. Some wounds need time before they can be discussed. The lesson I want to leave you with is this: trust your instincts about family, especially when money is involved. When someone starts managing your affairs for your own good, pay attention. When concerned relatives begin documenting your concerning behavior, investigate, and never, ever assume that family loyalty protects you from family greed. The people closest to you have the most access to your vulnerabilities. Sometimes that access becomes a weapon. If this story resonates with you, or if you recognize these warning signs in your own family, please share it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and whether you've seen similar situations. Sometimes the most important protection we can offer each other is simply paying attention,